If we get this basic working relationship right, then we can get our policies right. I think, by and large, our policies, the major ones in Singapore, are in the right direction. They may need fine-tuning, adjusting. The rough edges have to be smoothed off, but we are heading in the right way. And I'd like to take two examples tonight of broad policy areas to give you a sense of how we should maintain our direction at the same time as we make this adjustment. Both important. And one of these policies is foreign workers and immigrants. It's not easy to maintain because these are policies where the benefits are there, but they are long-term. The downsides are immediate, the side effects are visible, and people react to them, and we have to respond to this. The foreign workers and immigrants we have taken have given us considerable benefits. Our economy has grown, our population has increased. But over the last few years, the changes have been taking place quite fast, and Singaporeans worry about the impact on them. Last year, I spoke of this at length in the rally, so I won't repeat the explanations which I gave you. Hopefully you remember what I said last year. I think that Singaporeans understand the logic of the policy, but the emotional impact, they still feel that, and that still causes worry and concern. So I empathize with this, and we are acting to relieve the pressures and to make clear that we are putting Singaporeans first. So tonight, what I would like to explain is not the basic rationale, which I think you know, but to talk about three further areas where we can help Singaporeans to cope with these issues and the consequences of these issues: housing, education, and jobs. Let me start with housing. I think it's at the top of a lot of people's minds. It's a key expression of putting Singaporeans first. Our home ownership policy ensures that every family has a stake in Singapore. But in the last 2 years, with property prices going up, spiking up sharply, many people have become unsettled. Young couples especially, because they want to get married, they want to book a flat, they want to start their family, and no flat means baby is put off. Or worse, they fear they will not be able to afford the homes when finally they get a flat. So HDB is building many more flats. This year, 25,000 BTO flats, and I think in recent tenders or recent BTO exercises, the ratio of applicants to flats has gradually been coming down. And we will keep on putting out the supply onto the market. One group who is most worried are those who are earning just below $8,000. It's just below the income ceiling, and they fear that they may breach the ceiling. There are more such couples now because people are getting married later, so they are applying for flats when they are more senior in their careers, so their incomes have gone up. There are more women who are working, so the family income has also gone up. And so they are quite worried, because if you're earning $7,500 and you get a promotion, you're not sure whether that's good news or bad news, because you may get promoted to $8,500 and then you have to write an appeal to your MP, and before they get the HDB flat. We have been studying this for some time, so what we will do is we will raise the HDB ceiling for income per household from $8,000 to $10,000. And for executive condominiums, where the ceiling is $10,000 now, we will raise that to $12,000. So we will bring more people into the HDB net, and you don't have to worry so much. But the result of bringing more people into the HDB net is that there's going to be more demand for the BTO flats. So we've got to make sure that HDB builds enough flats to cope with this extra demand. I've discussed this with Kobun Wan, and he's talked to his staff, And next year, HDB will be able to build another 25,000 flats, BTO, same like this year. And that's a big number. He's quite confident that with these measures, we can meet the demand and we can keep the price of new flats stable and affordable. However, there's a minority of Singaporeans who can't afford purchase flats, can't afford the home ownership, and they will need rental flats. And we know this, and we are increasing the supply of rental flats. And over the next 2 years, we will add 7,000 rental flats to our supply, so we can cater to more families who need this help. We are also postponing the demolition of some SIRS blocks so that we can use them as temporary rental units. Because when you do a SIRS project, you build a new block, you move the people from the old block into the new blocks, and the old blocks can be demolished and redeveloped in due course. But instead of demolishing them now, we can use them as temporary rental flats until we can relieve the pressure on rentals, and we can do the redevelopment a little bit later on. And I think all these measures will ease the waiting time and make things better for households who may be very anxious to get a solution to their housing problems. But I should say that the rental flats, building more rental flats, is not really the most fundamental solution to the problems which these households face, because their problems are really upstream. They've run into financial difficulties, or their families have split up, or there have been some gambling or some business failure, and so as a result they've cashed out on their flat which they already own, and now they want a rental flat as another safety net. And this is something which we have to study and address, because these are deeper social issues, not so easy to solve. But overall, I promise you, we will keep housing available and affordable for Singaporeans. So the first thing we are making a move on is housing. Another area where we need to make some adjustment is university education, university places. Education is one of the issues which is at the top of nearly every Singaporean's minds, a passionate concern. Whether you're a student mugging for the next exam, trying to get into the next institution, next school, or you're a parent, kanchiong, worrying about your kid. The university term has just begun, and this year a record number of Singaporeans are going to universities in Singapore, 12,000. 1 in 4 of every student, every person that age is going to university. We've never had so many or so big a proportion, and I congratulate all of them and their parents for doing well and for taking this significant step in their education. But even then, not all those who applied could be admitted, and not all those who got into university got their first choice of course. Because the competition for courses, the competition for places in some courses is very intense. For example, in the medical school here in NUS, we have 300 places for medical students, but 2,000 students applied to do medical school. And all of them have outstanding results, 3 A's, 4 A's, ECCA, secondment, internship, all sorts. Whatever is necessary to improve their chances, they've done it. But there's no way we can take 2,000, so unfortunately, quite a number had to be disappointed. And we received many appeals from parents and students. I got one myself, whom I met in my Meet the People session. She came to see me. I said, "Good evening." She said, "Good morning." Why? Because she had waited for me, and it was about 12:30 at night by the time she saw me. But it was that important to her, she made the effort. I get many emails, so have the ministers. I'd like to quote from one, written by a mother of a student trying to get into university. And she wrote, long email, but I'll just quote one section. She said, "I'm very saddened by all the statements made in the general election about Singaporeans first. I'm not asking for financial help, nor housing, nor complaining about GST or cost of living. What I'm asking for is a place for my child to further his education. Why don't you give him a chance? So it's a heartfelt plea which I think many parents will empathize with, and which we feel too, because we read all these appeals and we understand how the parents passionately want the best for their kids. Even so, unfortunately, not all the appeals succeeded, although this one did. The son was interviewed by NTU, eventually admitted, but I should explain, on his own merits and not because of special intervention by me. But for those who didn't get in, my advice is, don't give up. There are many different pathways up. We are providing a good education for all our students. Whether or not you go to university, or you go to poly, or you go to the ITE, or you go to work, and later on you advance into the university, there are many opportunities to keep upgrading yourselves, not just once off, but all your lives. And whichever way you go, do your best, do well. Because that way you open up more opportunities, and that way I think you make it easier for us to help you. One unhappiness is the feeling that maybe foreign students have taken the place of locals in universities. Because our universities do take a proportion of foreign students. Right now they have about 18% foreign students. But I should say that these foreign students have not been at the expense of the local student intake, because we have steadily increased the number of places for Singaporeans in our universities. So if you look at it over the last 10 years, 10 years ago we only had 9,000 students in the universities, Singapore students, and now, as I told you just now, we have 12,000, more than ever. And it's the result of our investments, our programs to build, and our determination to provide as many places as possible for Singaporeans. And the best experience for the students who go to university, because there are many benefits for the local students to have foreign classmates. It prepares them better for the global workplace. It exposes them to the competition and spurs them to work harder and give their best. And quite often, the local and the foreign students will even partner and make new startups. And here's one example of a startup done by local and foreign students. And the company is called, NUS students, company is called BioMers. It produces translucent braces, orthodontic braces. So this is a thing they're making, and you can't see it on the teeth because it's meant to be invisible. So you can look beautiful or handsome even while you straighten your teeth. The key people in this project are 3 Singaporeans. The 2 girls in front, Renuga, who did the research, Karen, who was a research assistant, helped her to do it, both from NUS. And then Mervyn, who was also from NUS, knew of this, went to UK to study, and there he met George. And George is very interesting because George is a Canadian Greek. And the 2 of them developed the technology further to make it commercializable. And they came back and they started a company, and they brought in Bindu, who is also an NUS student, and he comes from India. And so this multinational team set up a startup. And the startup now has 26 staff, and more than half of this staff are Singaporeans. So when you have this international mix in our universities, it's good for our students. And we've got to keep on doing this, but we also have to strike the right balance between the local and the foreign students. We are at 12,000 Singapore students now at our universities, and we're going to expand the intakes further, considerably. Over the next 4 years, we will expand university intakes by 2,000 university places. 2,000 university places per year. And that's a lot of places, because the whole of Singapore Management University only takes about 1,700 students. So we are talking about 1 extra SMU plus over the next 4 years. and all 2,000 students, 2,000 places will go to Singapore students. So by 2015, our universities will have 14,000 Singapore students, more than ever before. But while we do this, we will cap the foreign enrollment at the present levels, and therefore gradually the mix will shift, and gradually the proportion of foreign students will come down. But this is not the end point, because we continue to develop beyond this, and beyond 2015, I believe that the universities should expand their enrollments further, because the economy will need more graduates, and our schools and our polys are producing more students with good results. And many of our students passionately want to go to university and have the grades and the capability to benefit from the university education. And I think we should allow as many as possible to have that opportunity. So MOE is studying how best to do this. May not be just from expanding the existing universities. Maybe we have opened new routes. It's something which we should study further. But whether it's houses, whether it's university, whether it's jobs, which we're coming to next, we put Singaporeans first, but in an open-minded sort of way. For jobs, we've let in a steady inflow of foreign workers into our economy at all levels. And because of that, our economy has thrived. And we have full employment. Everybody has a job. All Singaporeans, nearly every Singaporean is working. The unemployment is only about 2.2% overall. But still, I know that Singaporeans worry about competition from foreigners. So some time ago, I had a dialogue with young people, and one polytechnic student asked me this very direct question. He said, you know, you have the S-Pass for people who are one level above the work permits. Why do you set the S-Pass qualifying salary at $1,800? Why did he ask me that question? Because really what he meant was, $1,800 is less than what many poly diploma holders are earning. Poly diploma holders earn more than that. So if you set the level there, you are going to have people who will be earning less than us but competing against us. Why do you let a foreigner compete directly against me? And I understand those feelings, but we need some non-Singaporeans to complement the Singaporeans and to make up our shortfalls. But at the same time, we also realize that it's important that Singaporeans remain the core of our workforce. We cannot become like the Gulf states where 80% of the people who are working are foreigners, and if you go there, whether it's the person in a hotel, whether it's a bank, whether it's the airport counter, or any of the jobs, it's foreigners working. And we cannot be like that. So we've tightened up on foreigners progressively. We've tightened up the foreign workers levy. We've tightened up on the dependency ratios. The S-Pass, we've pushed from $1,800 to $2,000. So that's of some help to the poly diploma holders and people who are at that level. And therefore, we have protected Singaporean workers, especially at the lower end. But we also have to be mindful of the impact on companies, especially the local SMEs, because they need the foreign workers the most, and if we squeeze out the foreign workers too drastically, we're going to kill the SMEs. So we are helping the SMEs to adjust, grants, tax deductions, all sorts of schemes to help them to upgrade their productivity. And we have to bear that in mind when we settle our policies. At the top end of the workforce, we have to allow in high-quality professionals and entrepreneurs because they grow our businesses here and help Singapore compete internationally. So if you look at what we are doing, at the bottom we are tightening, at the top we have to be free, in between we have to make some adjustment. The middle, the lower middle level, foreigners are here, employment pass. Singaporeans are working. They're probably graduates or diploma holders, not hard up, not unskilled, but not so confident of themselves that they are ready for unrestrained competition. And feeling vulnerable, worried about what may happen. So I think at this middle level, we need to tighten a little bit further. We need to raise the salary requirement for the employment pass holders, tighten up the educational qualifications, make sure they come with real skills valuable to us. And this is something MOM has worked on and will announce details soon. And MOM will also work with tripartite partners so as to develop guidelines for fair employment practices and responsible recruitment practices, so that when you have a Singaporean working side by side with a foreigner, they both feel fairly treated and nobody feels that he's at a disadvantage. And this is something which will work together with the unions and the employers. But I should caution you on one thing. Just because we are tightening on foreign workers doesn't mean automatically that Singaporeans will get better jobs or higher pay. Because the competition isn't just a foreign worker here. You're competing with workers all over the world. And unskilled workers have felt this for a long time, but increasingly, our graduates and professionals are also seeing this happen. In China, every year, 7 million graduates graduate from university, double the number of Singaporeans there are. And of these, 1.5 million are engineering and science types. They're hungry, they're competitive, and they're competing furiously with one another in China. And I think the impact will be felt around the world for the next 20 years, and including us. So it's really a tidal wave, a tsunami coming in our direction, and the only way to get out of the trouble is to rise above the tsunami by training ourselves, developing expertise, and doing things which they can't do yet in China, but we can do now in Singapore, and making a living for ourselves in order that we can improve our lives. But even if we do that, we have to accept that if we bring down the number of foreigners, slow the inflow, it means slower growth. Less economic growth, somewhat less vitality. Companies will come here not so vigorously, or they may choose to expand elsewhere. And we will have less resources to improve our lives. So, you've got to find the right balance. Yes, we will moderate and manage the foreign workers, but we have to bring in enough so that we have the manpower and the talent to grow and to prosper. So this is what we must do when it comes to putting Singaporeans first. Stay open, but moderate our policies, solve the problems. Whether it's housing, whether it's education, whether it's jobs. It's worked. We've brought global winners here, and we've created prosperity for Singaporeans. And one example of this is Lucasfilm Singapore. Last year I talked about them, but I think this year there's something interesting to share with you again. Lucasfilm in Singapore has 500 employees. They come from 36 countries, and nearly half of them are Singaporeans. Skilled people, animators, visual effect artists, engineers. Many of them graduated from our polys, which have very good digital arts and digital animation courses. And the team here has helped to produce many successful movies. I showed you Clone Wars 2 years ago, but the latest movie which we have been working on here is Transformers 3, Dark of the Moon. And I'll show you just one short clip done jointly by the team here and the team in San Francisco. Those of you who watch Transformer movies will know that this is a movie clip of Bumblebee. "10 seconds on the screen, or 8 seconds on the screen, but more than 10 people worked on it. Layout, simulation, animation, lighting, all kinds of skills, highly refined, only possible because you have this very diverse team with all the people from all around the world put together to make it happen. So let's stay open, keep current, with new ideas and trends, stay ahead of the competition, and let's stay a confident, forward-looking, and successful society.